Hello and welcome. This next topic is far overdue for discussion. And raise your hand right now if you know what your attachment style is. There are 4 different styles of attachment in attachment theory in psychology. Only one type is considered secure, and only about half of the people here on this planet have the secure attachment style. That leaves a whole heck of a lot of us in the non-secure attachment style categories, of which there are 3 types. And if you have an addiction, it is almost certain that you have the non-secure attachment style, one of those 3 types. It is extremely rare, I don't want to say impossible, but it is extremely rare when someone who has a secure attachment style develops an addiction at some point in their life. And attachment style has to do with how we were raised as children. And yes, even if we had parents who loved us to death, it is very, very, very possible to have one of the non-secure attachment styles. It has nothing to do with your parents' love for you, but it has everything to do with their ability to show it in a healthy way. And their attachment style is going to have everything to do with their ability to show it in a healthy way. And if someone has a non-secure attachment style, that is an unspoken type of very, very common trauma. That means at least half of us walking around have some type of trauma as a result of our parents' inability to show us the love that they had for us. And so what are the 4 attachment styles? Well, one of them is just simply called the secure attachment style. Easy, right? There's another type called the dismissive avoidant. Another type called the anxious preoccupied. And another called the fearful avoidant. You'll notice that some of them go by different names. So for example, the fearful avoidant sometimes goes by the name disorganized. And the dismissive avoidant is sometimes just called the avoidant. And what does this have to do with addiction? Many of you have already heard me say this quote that connection is the opposite of addiction. Connection is the opposite of addiction. And those of us who have a non-secure attachment style have trouble connecting in ways that are mandatory for what our nervous system needs for proper self-regulation and a sense of inner security. And if that sense of inner security is not there, then we tend to try to reach for it for things outside of ourselves, such as anything that can become addictive. And the sneaky thing is sometimes it actually involves our interaction with another person. This was one of the addictions I personally fell into, which was being addicted to external validation seeking from other people, which meant I'm spending all of this time in the presence of other people that feels really good. It feels like connecting, but it was me putting on a mask or a front without knowing it, without realizing it, just so that I could get the reaction from whoever I was engaging with and get that external validation so that I would get the sense of security within my nervous system. But that was a false sense of security. It was one of the many forms of what we can call an adult security blanket, because I was using the other person's reactions as a way to define my self-worth. And that's a very dangerous place to be. And so sometimes it can be a sneaky addiction where we're actually having fun social interactions with other people that seem really harmless. And so every single one of us who is not a secure attachment style individual, which is also known as a bonding strategy. Your attachment style is known as your specific bonding strategy and how you bond and make connections with other people. And if you are the secure attachment style, then your bonding strategy is healthy for both you and the other person. When you're not in a secure attachment style bonding strategy, that's all taking place in the subconscious mind, learned in childhood, then it actually creates a false sense of security, but it is reinforcing the initial childhood wounds that created the non-secure attachment style. And it can show up in friendships, but it shows up even stronger, much, much stronger and obvious and noticeable in romantic relationships. And here's the thing, our subconscious mind automatically is attracted to the people who are going to display the same things that our parents or primary caregivers displayed, the specific behaviors that caused our initial childhood wounding to create a non-secure attachment style. Because our subconscious mind, and part of that inner child within us still, learns that that is what love actually is. And it's confused. And it's confused because that's the only thing it ever knew. And that's the thing that actually kept that child alive growing up. Because as kids, we are truly dependent on our caregivers. Otherwise, we would die, right? An infant or toddler or small child cannot fend for themselves. They are truly dependent. And now, as an adult, your subconscious mind still believes that you need someone in your life like that to attach to bond with, in order for your survival. It is a survival mechanism that is built within our subconscious mind. And so this is why it's so common for many of us to end up in romantic relationships that are actually poking at the tender emotional wounds that we developed in childhood as a result of our parents' inability to show us what secure attachment looks like. And so we can all move along the spectrum to heal from whatever non-secure attachment style we're in and move along the spectrum towards the secure attachment style. This is an incredible process that oftentimes can take years, and. This is a very critically important component, and I'm going to share something with you that is critical and massively under-talked about in addiction recovery and trauma recovery. And so, essentially, healing from your attachment style to move towards a secure attachment style, you could also call that trauma healing. You can also call that healing from addiction, because once you have shifted towards that secure attachment style, your subconscious mind finally feels safe enough and secure enough to no longer need that external addictive escapism. And so I know that some of you are in romantic relationships and even married to individuals who are massively triggering that emotional wound within you that was developed within childhood, that created that non-secure attachment style. And it's reinforcing that initial childhood wound, which also means it is lighting the fuel to the fire to any addiction you may have. This means that for many of you, in order to actually heal from the addiction, you must get out of that romantic relationship that you're in. Sometimes this, yes, even means divorce. Because if you are with a romantic partner who is not also working on those things for themselves, then you are going to massively plateau in your own healing and recovery journey, from trauma, from addiction, all of it. So you've all heard me say that pornography is not the problem. Or you can say whatever addictive escapism a person is using is never the problem. It's a symptom of the real problem. The real problem is actually being in that non-secure attachment style. And when we do whatever it takes to shift towards that secure attachment style, then we have healed the emotional wounding within us, and our subconscious mind no longer feels the need for that addictive escapism because it has been finally replaced with healthy connection. And for most of you, that will be something that you'll be experiencing for the first time ever in your entire lives. Since it's a wound that happened during early childhood. And so it's actually a required learning opportunity for you to be in the romantic relationship that you're currently in that is the very triggering thing that's keeping you in the addiction. That relationship showed up for you so it can give you all of the lessons that you need so you can take action on it. So you can finally take action on healthy boundary setting, at elevating your self-compassion, at learning vulnerability, and leaning into that type of maybe open communication if you're the dismissive avoidant, or perhaps if you are the anxious preoccupied, learning how to not be so clingy and having the recognition and the awareness of what patterns are showing up and realizing the reason why. The reason why that pattern showed up is because of an emotional wounding of the past. And that pattern shows up as an attempt to protect you, But the only thing that will be truly protective will be the secure attachment styles. So it's changing your current, what's called a bonding strategy, the way that we emotionally bond and connect to others, especially in a romantic relationship. And so for many of you who are in the relationships that are reinforcing the emotional wounding, codependency is one of the biggest examples of that. If your partner is not fully, and I mean fully on board, with also doing the inner work to intentionally shift towards the secure attachment style, then as long as you stay in that relationship, you are likely to remain addicted on some level. Or you're going to have certain things come across your life, like you'll maybe be triggered by the news or some financial thing or something at work or something at home that's going to then trigger you to go relapse, and then you find yourself in all this blame and shame and like feelings of inadequacy, when really those triggers weren't the problem. The problem was that you are choosing to remain in the relationship that is causing a massive sense of insecurity to remain in your nervous system and subconscious mind, because it is a highly unhealthy bonding strategy, which is one of the 3 non-secure attachment styles. And so one thing that I am going to prioritize is step 1, before even attempting to work on healing from the addiction. Get yourself out of the relationship. And here's why. Because yes, you can stay there, and yes, you can continue to do the inner work, but you're going to be working and putting 100 times, 1,000 times more effort in only moving the needle in a small direction. And so it's going to take you significantly longer, if it ever even happens, to heal from the addiction. And as soon as you get yourself to a healthy enough place, you are no longer going to tolerate being in that codependent relationship or whatever it is, the one that you've been in. And your new sense of self-worth is going to say, I deserve better, I deserve different. And then you will choose to exit anyway. Because you will realize and recognize it will be the only way for you to continue to grow and do the inner work. Because we are not islands. We are deeply affected by the people we are connected to, and especially if we live with them. Biologically, we cannot get around this. This is who we are. This is how we are wired. It is wired into our nervous systems to absolutely be affected by other people. And I encourage you to do research into the HeartMath Institute, used by the US government. And it has to do with how strongly our physiology affects the physiology of another person. And our brain wavelength frequencies and our heart wavelength frequencies, and our nervous system regulation, and our emotional responses to each other, from each other. We are not isolated beings. We absolutely affect each other. And to think that you are going to just get on this pinnacle of healing while you are living with someone who is constantly reinforcing the emotional wounding, then it's time to have a massive and hard, challenging wake-up call. And it is a beautiful and rare thing. It is a beautiful and rare thing when your partner does choose to join that healing journey with you. But do not expect it. Do not expect it. Do not expect it. You will be living in a fairy tale land. Do not expect it. Okay. And the way we heal our attachment style, is not by isolating ourselves. There can be a period of alone time that is going to be more healing than the current situation that you're in. But don't expect yourself to have to wait till you get to the pinnacle of healing before you say, okay, I'm a secure attachment style person, now I can go enter the healthy relationship. Because truthfully, the best way to heal from your attachment style is to either enter a relationship with someone who already is the secure attachment style, or to enter or be in one with someone who is very, very serious and means it, and taking solid action steps for themselves to be in that secure attachment style. Anything short of that is going to continue to reinforce the wounds that you are trying to heal. Those are the inner wounds that need to heal for your addiction to be healed and resolved, for the trauma to heal and be resolved. Our connection with other people is everything, and it deeply affects our connection to ourselves. We cannot isolate our healing. It must involve our connection with other people. It must. Okay, I want to add a self-awareness piece, because your self-awareness is going to be a massive component in your ability to accurately answer the questions in the test to see what your attachment style is. And I'll tell you a story about a number of years ago, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. One of my clients with conviction said to me, well, Jessica, I don't have any trauma. My parents loved me, and he's like, I don't have any really bad memories of anything happened to me as a kid. Life seemed pretty normal. I just had a normal childhood experience. And when he went to go take the attachment style quiz, it came out as secure. And after getting to know him and hearing some of his stories, it turned out he was actually massively a dismissive avoidant. So his ability to self-assess was inaccurate. And hearing some of his childhood stories, he had massive abandonment from his father, who was gone working most of the time. He pretty much didn't have a father growing up. And when his father would sometimes be around, or say he would be around, I remember he told me this time where he was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it was his birthday, and his dad promised he would be there, and he was so excited to see his dad, and he waited in the front yard of his home for hours waiting for his father to arrive. His dad never showed up. That's abandonment. And that was what his childhood was like. He had a massive lack of self-awareness, disconnection from self. He thought he had no trauma. He thought he had this secure attachment style, and his story couldn't be further from the truth. And so just be aware of that. Be aware of that, okay? And if you have never been in a romantic relationship before, it might be very difficult for you to actually answer the questions on the self-assessment quiz to see what your attachment style is, because oftentimes they're based on that. And be very mindful. Answer them of how you actually are, not answering them of the version of yourself that you want to be, or not answering it just because you think it's the healthier option. You may falsely believe that you are actually falling into the healthier option because intellectually that's the better thing to do. But be aware of your actual true habits and patterns. These are subconscious patterns. Okay, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.